If you've been watching the TV news or reading newspapers, you've undoubtedly seen lots of eye-grabbing headlines about how erythritol is associated with heart disease and heart attacks. Here's a headline from CNN, here's another one from Fox, and here's another attention-grabbing headline from USA Today. So I have been getting an awful lot of questions online about this erythritol heart disease study, but before I responded, I wanted to read the study for myself, digest it, and do some other research before offering up an opinion. I have read this study, and here's what I think about it. First up, what is erythritol? Well, if you've never heard it before, it's a sugar alcohol. It's a zero-calorie sweetener. It does not raise blood sugar levels. It does not raise insulin levels, so it's quite popular with people who have diabetes. And as an added bonus, erythritol is not broken down by the bacteria in the mouth, which means it doesn't contribute to cavities either. So the study that's getting all the attention comes out of the Cleveland Clinic, which has a pretty heavy hitter reputation. So in the first part of the study, the researchers followed about 1,000 people for 3 years and found that those with the highest levels of erythritol in their blood had the greatest risk of heart attacks, strokes, and even death. They then followed this up with a larger group of people, 3,000 individuals in the United States and Europe, and likewise also noted that those people who had higher levels of erythritol in their blood had a greater risk of heart attacks, strokes, and not living so long. To see what might be happening here, what they did was they took a small number of people, 8 individuals in this group, and they gave them a high dose of erythritol, and they noted that erythritol caused their blood platelets to start sticking together and forming clots. Blood clot formation in the body might cause a heart attack. They also noted that erythritol levels tended to stay elevated in the body for over 2 days after people consumed it. All this caused the researchers to conclude that elevated levels of erythritol in the blood are associated with blood clots, heart attacks, strokes, and death. Pretty scary stuff. So what might be going on here? So the first thing I would point out is that erythritol is formed naturally in the body, and it's also found in several foods, such as fermented foods, watermelon, pears, grapes, and even wine. It also appears that people who are overweight and those who have diabetes tend to make more erythritol as well. Those same people also tend to have higher levels of oxidative stress in their body, oxidative stress being a fancy new age term for free radical damage. So in other words, people who are overweight and who have diabetes or other health problems, they tend to make more erythritol. If we look at the makeup of the people in this study showing that elevated erythritol is linked to heart disease, we see that about 1/3 of them would be classified as overweight, 22% of those people tended to have diabetes, and over 70% of these individuals also had high blood pressure and heart disease. Over 40 of them also had a history of heart attacks. These were also older people in their 60s who also tend to have higher levels of oxidative stress in the body. So what I'm getting here is it possible that their elevated erythritol levels was due to their poor health? If that's the case, is it also possible that erythritol is a marker for heart disease rather than a cause of heart disease? Unfortunately, we can't tell this because they only measured levels of erythritol in the blood. They didn't even measure how much erythritol these people were consuming in their diet. People in Japan tend to be some of the longest lived people on earth, and it also turns out that people living in Japan eat way more erythritol than Americans. So what I'm getting at here is you'd think that if erythritol was triggering heart attacks and blood clots and strokes, that people living in Japan would have much higher rates than those living in the United States. But that's not what we see. So simply looking at erythritol levels in the blood doesn't appear to, in my opinion, give us the full picture. So what about the part of the study where people's blood tended to clot together when they were given erythritol? Let's remember that this part of the investigation only contained 8 people, which isn't very much, and the researchers gave those people a lot of erythritol. How much? 30 grams of erythritol mixed in a beverage. That's about 1 ounce of erythritol. Now, if we look at a typical zero-calorie sweetener like Truvia, we can see that each packet has 2 grams of erythritol per packet. So to get the equivalent amount that was used in this research study, you'd have to consume 15 packets at once to get an equivalent amount of erythritol used in this investigation. Who does that? So in my opinion, the dosage of erythritol that caused blood to clot together wasn't a realistic dose. I would have preferred it if they actually had a subgroup in this study that consumed a more realistic dose of erythritol to see if that actually caused blood to clot together. Further complicating this story is some research suggesting that erythritol might actually be protective against heart disease, such as this study you're looking at here, revealing that erythritol tended to lower blood pressure and improve blood vessel function. So what does all this mean for you? Well, the first thing I'd point out is that correlation does not mean cause and effect. If you've been looking into this, you've most likely seen other YouTubers saying the very same thing. Just because two things are associated with each other does not mean they are related to each other. Is it possible the people in this study had higher levels of erythritol because they were older, overweight, and not so healthy to begin with? Another thing to keep in mind is because the people in this study were not so healthy to start off with, we can't tell how applicable these results might be to generally healthy individuals. So for now, if you're healthy and you're enjoying 1 or 2 packets or even 3 packets of erythritol in your coffee or tea each day, I personally wouldn't worry about this study. Newspapers and websites and even people on YouTube will use clickbait titles to get your attention. And as long as the information is presented in its proper context, I'm okay with that. However, if they don't, then they're just monetizing fear, and I think that's wrong. So if you're concerned about this study, how can you lower your erythritol levels naturally? Well, the one thing I would say is if you're overweight, then dropping a few pounds will naturally lower your erythritol levels. Now, if you've got some health ailments like, say, high blood pressure or type 2 diabetes, it's possible maybe your erythritol levels are higher. And if maybe you can lower your risk factors in those areas, perhaps that also will naturally lower your erythritol levels. Now, if you have significant levels of heart disease right now as you're watching this, I think your best source of information is your doctor and pharmacist, who I'm sure can offer much greater insights on this topic by the time you see this video. So there is my take on erythritol and heart disease. I hope this quick video helped, and leave a question if you got them below and I'll see what I can dig up for you. And until next time, take care out there.